Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Unfortunately, I've got more bad news about the pandemic. Brace yourselves for Delta Plus, a new subvariant of the coronavirus that's already spread to the United States. It comes amid increasing protests against vaccine mandates that are splintering the country.
Meanwhile, a major announcement from the FDA is looming. So what could it be? Here's CBN's Jenna Browder in Washington with the latest.
Protests are erupting across the country over COVID-19 mandates. This as concern grows over a new subvariant of the virus, and the FDA is expected to make a big announcement. Parents in California are fired up, protesting outside the state capitol and across the state.
The harder they push, the louder we'll get.
California teachers are now required to get the shot. The mandate coming for students, too, once the vaccine is fully approved for their age groups.
I'm not a parent that wants my child to be controlled by the government, so I want my child to not be vaccinated.
In Chicago, a face-off between police officers and the mayor. 35% haven't reported their vaccine status and risk losing their jobs. In Washington state, an officer forced to leave for not complying signed off with a message for the governor.
This is my final sign off after 22 years of serving the citizens of the state of Washington, being asked to leave because I am dirty. Numerous fatalities, injuries. I've worked sick. I've played sick. We buried lots of friends over these years. State 1034, this is the last time you'll hear me in a state patrol car. And Jay Inslee can kiss my ass.
Nationwide, 62% of all officer deaths last year were from COVID. In the sports world, Washington State has fired its head football coach and 4 assistants for refusing the state mandate.
I mean, it's just unfortunate. This team, they don't deserve this. I mean, that is a real point of heartbreak.
It all comes as a so-called subvariant called Delta Plus ramps up its spread. About 6% of all cases in the UK are from this new strain, which has already spread to the U.S. Meanwhile, some governors are pushing back against the mandates. Montana Governor Greg Gianforte telling CBN News.
This Delta variant is dangerous. It's spreading quickly. But it's spreading whether there are mandates or not. And unfortunately, these mandates have created an economic pandemic where previously we only had a health pandemic.
But a new study from the COVID States Project shows support for governors slipping in states without mandates. While the battle brews, the FDA could make an announcement on booster shots this week. The agency expected to recommend people get boosters that match their original doses, but could still allow mixing and matching.
I think mixing and matching would reduce supply chain complexity quite a bit, and so the end result would be more boosters and more arms, and that matters a lot.
And we should mention at midnight, a vaccine mandate went into effect in Seattle. The city reports 99% of its employees have complied. In Washington, Jenna Browder, CBN News.
Well, I go back to March of 2020, which seems like a long time ago. The CDC put out a report saying we could expect waves of contagion going forward as the virus mutates. And so that's what we're currently seeing. It shouldn't come as a surprise that there are more mutations. This is a novel virus. That is a wonderful way of saying human beings have never experienced this virus before. It's related to the common cold as a coronavirus. It mutates like crazy. So we can expect to see more mutations going forward. Now the issue is, as a culture, what do we do? What do we do with vaccines? What do we do with the rate of infection? How do we move forward as a free and open democracy where people have the right to say, well, this is my body, I don't want to get this vaccine, and counterbalance that with the needs for public health. This is going to be an ongoing political struggle, and ultimately, I believe the courts are going to get involved. We'll keep you posted as these developments occur. In other news, $1 million apiece. That's what the kidnappers in Haiti are demanding for the release of 17 missionaries. John Jessup has more on that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
That is right, Gordon. The Haitian gang that kidnapped 17 American and Canadian missionaries is demanding $17 million for their release. The Wall Street Journal reports Haitian Justice Minister Litz Cattell said the FBI and Haitian police are in contact with the kidnappers. The Justice Minister said the missionaries are being held at a house in Port-au-Prince that's controlled by a group called the 400 Mawozo Gang. The Christian group from Ohio, it's called Ohio Christian Aid Ministries, my apologies, was returning from a visit to an orphanage when the gang stopped their bus and took them hostage. The captives include 5 children ranging in ages 8 months to 15 years. Well, tributes are pouring in for Colin Powell. His lifetime of public service included Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and Secretary of State. Powell made history as the first black man to hold both of those positions. His family listed his death to complications from COVID, but it's important to note he also suffered from cancer and Parkinson's disease. CBN's Tara Mergener has more on the tribute to this American icon.
Colin Powell spent his adult life serving his country with 35 years in the military and as trusted advisor to each American president, from Ronald Reagan until George W. Bush. The U.S. Defense Secretary saying Colin Powell's passing is like a hole in his heart.
The world lost one of the greatest leaders that we have ever witnessed.
Though fully vaccinated, his family announcing he died from COVID complications. He'd been diagnosed with multiple myeloma, a type of blood cancer that weakens the body's ability to protect against infections. In a statement, the Powell family remembering him as a remarkable and loving husband, father, grandfather, and a great American. The son of Jamaican parents, Powell's life started in Harlem, later graduating from City College of New York and joining the Army through ROTC. He completed 2 decorated combat tours in Vietnam, rose to National Security Advisor for President Ronald Reagan, and eventually served under 4 presidents.
Colin L. Powell, the 65th Secretary of State,
including President George W. Bush.
General Powell is an American hero, an American example, and a great American story.
Who, after learning of Powell's death, wrote, "Laura and I are deeply saddened by the death of Colin Powell. He was a great public servant." Along with his service came controversy following this 2003 United Nations speech defending the U.S. invasion of Iraq.
There can be no doubt that Saddam Hussein has biological weapons.
While those weapons were never found, Powell maintained it was an intelligence failure and insisted the decision was the right one. Once part of the GOP, Powell twice endorsed Barack Obama. Then after the deadly January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol, he said he no longer considered himself a Republican.
And right now, I'm just watching my country and not concerned with parties.
Highly regarded by political leaders worldwide.
His experience, his patriotism, he gave us his decency.
He also twice received the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Powell leaves behind his wife of 48 years, Alma Powell, and his son, Michael. He was 84. In Washington, I'm Tara Mergener, CBN News.
And in his final interviews, one of them, Powell told journalist Bob Woodward, "Don't feel sorry for me. I'm 84 years old. I haven't lost a day of life fighting these diseases. I'm in good shape." Well, cancer and heart disease are the leading causes of death in America. As medical correspondent Lori Johnson shows us, adding some of nature's healthiest nutrients to your diet might add a few years to your life.
Polyphenols found in certain plant foods are considered very healthy because of the protection they provide from damage that often comes with aging. Research shows these compounds can also reduce the risk of heart disease and other leading causes of death.
Some of these compounds are now recognized as having dramatic anti-cancer effects. And I actually use the power of polyphenols in both of my clinics for the active treatment of people with cancer, metastatic cancer, who are inoperable.
Dr. Stephen Gundry pushed the designation of National Polyphenol Day to raise awareness.
Right now, blackberries and raspberries have the highest polyphenol content of any of the berries. That's followed by strawberries.
Dr. Gundry recommends olive oil, preferably cold-pressed and extra virgin from a single country of origin.
The more bitter the olive oil, the more, when you have olive oil, it makes you cough or it actually burns. That's a sign of the polyphenol content.
Likewise, when it comes to chocolate, the more bitter, the better.
Extra dark chocolate has tons of polyphenols, but beware, milk chocolate, which is preferred by Americans, all the polyphenols have been taken out to make it taste good.
Black coffee also does more than give you a morning pickup.
Fascinating study shows that people who drink 5 or more cups of coffee per day have a very low incidence of Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, and it turns out it's the polyphenols that have that benefit.
Some teas also score high.
And it really doesn't matter whether it's green tea or black tea, but herbal teas aren't loaded with polyphenols.
Dr. Gundry recommends using spices liberally because most of them, even ordinary black pepper, can help.
Sprinkle them on your salad, sprinkle them on your fish, your chicken. And you can get polyphenols that way every day without, worrying about it.
By increasing the number of polyphenols we consume in foods and beverages, spices, and supplements, research shows we can lower our risk of disease. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Thank you, Lori. Gordon, I feel like I have a few more items to add to the grocery list.
Well, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to add bitter olive oil to the list, but Terry Meeuwsen was just having a moment of transcendence when she learned that 5 cups of black coffee a day will give extra life and guard your heart and your mind.
May it be so. May it be so. Oh, wow.